Hey everyone, my name is James at Top 10 Performance, and today I wanted to discuss the anatomy and the technique to properly draw your bow and how this can increase your risk or decrease your risk for injury. So before we begin, I wanted to say thank you for stopping by to watch this channel, and if you could go ahead and subscribe while you're here if you haven't already. So for the purpose of this video, I want to focus on mainly just the shoulder function when drawing back your bow. So to start off with, I want to talk about the bow arm. So as you bring your bow up to draw back, you have to work on this shoulder flexion and abduction movement. So the muscles involved with that primarily are the anterior delt, the long head of the bicep, the coracobrachialis, and the clavicular head of the pec major. So these muscles are all working against gravity, against your bow weight to hold that bow straight out in front of you. Now, of course, the rotator cuff muscle is working as well to keep that head of the humerus, the ball inside the socket, and make sure it's stabilized and secure in there. So that is as you bring your bow down. So now I want to talk about your release hand and arm. So this is where things get a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more going on this side of the draw cycle. And all of these are kind of happening at the same time. So I might talk about them separately, but if you think about the motion, it's all one smooth motion of you drawing back. So it's all happening at once. So to start off with, we have, as you're starting to pull back, we're extending our shoulders. So bringing the elbow like past your body. And the muscles that mostly do that is your latissimus dorsi or your lat, your teres major, and your posterior delt, okay? And then as you're also coming back, we have your scapular retraction. Now this is happening on both your bow arm and your release arm. So you're kind of squeezing those shoulder blades together behind you. That's called scapular retraction, okay? So the muscles that mostly do that is you have the middle fibers of your trap muscle, your rhomboids, and your lats also kind of work to do that. Okay, so those are the muscles that are squeezing those shoulder blades back as you pull your bow apart to draw. And then next up you have some horizontal abduction. So this is if you have your arms straight out in front of you, this is bringing them straight back, so in line with your body, okay? This is mostly due to the middle delt or the posterior delt, okay? And the supraspinatus can also work to hold the arm up to do that. We have external rotation. So this is as you're drawing back, you're extending your shoulder back horizontally, abducting, retracting your shoulder blades. Then you're kind of bringing that string up to your face, and that's that external rotation movement. And that is from the infraspinatus and teres minor. So both of those are rotator cuff muscles. So now as you can see through the anatomy, the muscles involved, it's a lot of shoulder stabilizers and your rotator cuff, okay? So working a lot of those shoulder retractors, and then the rotator cuff are all the muscles that sit on top of your shoulder blade that work right on top of that humerus head to make sure it rotates properly inside the socket. So now that we discussed the muscles involved and kind of how they work in conjunction to draw back your bow, I want to talk about why some people either draw low, pull straight across, or have a real high draw, sky drawing. I want to talk about all that and kind of why people do that. So to start off with, we'll start low. So why do people draw their bow back low across their chest? So what they're doing here is they're using a lot of their lats and a lot of their bicep to curl the bow back to get the bow back into a drawn position. The reason why people do this is because their retractors are weak and the external rotators are weaker, okay? So you're keeping it low, you're keeping it close to your waist, so you can use your more powerful, stronger lats to get it back. The problem with this is that you're relying a lot also on the bicep to pull back. So now that you're pulling back across your chest, now you have to raise up to get in position. So we're wasting a lot of energy and we're putting a lot of stress on the bicep as we're coming up. So that could be a possible weak point in this that can cause some issues for some people. Next up, we have kind of that proper draw cycle that we think of. So being able to just pull the bow straight back, this requires a lot of strength of your horizontal abduction muscles and your retractors, okay? So that's why some people struggle with this, because those are typically weaker muscles in our day-to-day life. We just don't use them a lot. A lot of things we do are very low and forward. And so it takes a lot of strength and energy for your body to be able to do that. Next, I want to talk about kind of a higher draw. And people do this, I think, in an attempt to keep their elbow up in the shot process. But a lot of times it can be awkward and hard for people, because now you're really taking the lats out of the equation. You're relying a lot on your lower and middle fibers of your trap, which aren't very big and strong muscles. And you're using a lot of your external rotators as well to be able to pull that bow back, get it back and into position. So it's just not a very efficient draw cycle whenever you think of that. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of impingement syndrome. And as you have your arm up, what can happen is that space between your rotator cuff and your collarbone and shoulder blade, it can decrease and cause some pinching there or some discomfort on the tendon. And as if you have your arm up really high and you're starting to draw, you don't have the strength to really move that shoulder blade around properly, you can get some discomfort with there. So that's kind of an issue with that high draw position. Next, I want to talk about sky drawing. So that is whenever you draw your bow with it pointed up, you draw back, and then you come down, okay? So people do this again. It's kind of the same as if you pull really low, is you're working your lats a lot in that bicep. There's a lot of safety concerns with this one. So energy-wise on your body, it's not that hard to do, and that's why a lot of people do it, because again, you're working your really strong lat muscles, so it's easy. The safety concerns with this is that your bow is pointed up in the air as you're drawing back. If for whatever reason that release goes off while you're halfway through your draw cycle, you're now sending your arrow 300 yards downrange to who knows what. Okay, so that is why a lot of places really do not want you doing that. That's why it's important to teach a strong draw cycle, teach a proper draw cycle, so then you can keep your bow pointed downrange as you come to anchor. Another thing that people kind of get confused with a sky draw is whenever you see a lot of target archers raise their arm up and then anchor down and pull back all in one motion. What this does is that it makes it a little bit easier for people to draw their bow back, because you're using gravity to assist in bringing the bow down. And as you're doing that, you're squeezing those lats, you're retracting those shoulder blades, and you're locking into place. Where this differs in between a sky draw is that you're not drawing back, hitting the back wall with your bow pointed in the air. You're starting your draw up just a little, you're still pointed downrange at your target, and then you pull back and you hit your full draw as you're pointed at the target. So the whole time the bow's pointed at the target instead of being pointed way up in the air. And you're still using the same muscles, it's just you're using gravity to assist you a little bit, and it makes it a lot smoother and easier. People tend to hate on this one because they think it's a sky draw, which I just talked about what that is and the differences. And two, in hunting scenarios, it's a lot of movement that can spook a deer. So people think you should be able just to pull straight back, which yes and no, it's not bad. If you have to do a lot of movement, you might spook an animal. If you watch your animals and you kind of know their tendencies, sometimes you can get away with a little bit more movement. So again, that's not wrong, but sometimes in a hunting scenario, it might not be the most efficient or best option to do when drawing your bow. So I kind of touched on it briefly as I went through the different draw cycles and some issues that you can have with each of those. So a low draw can be a risk for injury if you look at the stress placed on the bicep as you're coming across and then raising up. I'm not saying that you are going to get injured for this, but it's just the point that's getting increased stress versus having it across the whole shoulder. And then we look at the issue with the very high elbow position. So now you're putting yourself at increased risk for impingement syndrome. You're also relying a lot more on those external rotators to get the bow back, which can be a weaker point. So really the goal with your draw cycle in that optimal position as you're looking at the efficiency of the muscles involved with it and trying to use them all to the best of their ability that they can. So this is equally placing stress across the whole shoulder joint as you're coming back. I hope that helps clear up any confusion about the draw cycle and kind of how to properly do it, the muscles involved. And if you know the muscles involved, now you can kind of think about ways to help train and strengthen up your shoulders to prevent injuries and to be able to draw better, or if you want to pull more poundage. If you feel like you need help improving your draw cycle, decreasing pain while drawing your bow, or improving your shoulder stability, click the link below to book a free consultation and we can talk about it and get you on the right plan to get you drawing your bow comfortably.